The fluorescent lights of the convenience store buzzed overhead like trapped insects, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made my reflection in the glass door look ghostly. I pressed my palm against the cool surface, steadying myself as another wave of dizziness washed over me. 3 double shifts this week, and my body was starting to revolt. "You okay, Emma?" Mrs. Chen's voice cut through the hum, her concern genuine despite the late hour. "Fine," I lied, forcing a smile that felt like cracking glass. "Just need some air." The November wind hit my face the moment I stepped outside, carrying with it the smell of rain-soaked asphalt and something else. Expensive cologne, leather, and danger. I'd learned to recognize that scent in the past month. Learned to associate it with the weight of gold on my finger and the cage I now called life. My thumb automatically went to the ring, twisting it nervously. 3 carats of blood money that sparkled even in the dim streetlight. A shackle disguised as a promise. A black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted so dark they seemed to swallow light. My stomach clenched. He'd sent someone to watch me again. Always watching, always waiting. Like a predator studying prey it had already caught but refused to devour. I walked past the vehicle, my worn sneakers silent on the wet pavement, and headed toward the bus stop. Independence. That's what I told myself these midnight walks represented. The illusion that I still had choices, that the contract I'd signed hadn't signed away every fragment of autonomy I possessed. The bus shelter reeked of urine and desperation, a perfume I'd grown accustomed to in my 23 years of surviving rather than living. I sat on the cold metal bench, pulling my threadbare jacket tighter. Designer clothes hung in the penthouse closet. Silk, cashmere, things that cost more than my mother's medical bills. But I couldn't bring myself to wear them. They felt like costumes for a role I never auditioned for. My phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number, though I knew exactly who it was. He never saved his contacts, never left trails. "You're working too hard." My fingers trembled as I typed back. That was the deal. I keep my job. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. The power play of someone who controlled when and how we communicated. The deal was marriage. "You're my wife now. Act like it. Wife." The word tasted like copper in my mouth, like biting down on aluminum foil. We'd been married for exactly 4 weeks, and he'd never touched me. Not once. The ceremony had been clinical. A judge's office, 2 witnesses I'd never seen before, and vows that meant nothing to either of us. "I can't have children," he'd told me that first night, his voice flat, emotionless, as if reporting the weather. The doctors were very clear, so whatever fantasies you have about trapping me with a pregnancy, forget them. I'd laughed then, a sound sharp enough to cut. "You think that's what I want? A baby with a man who bought me like property?" Something had flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect, but it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by that impenetrable mask he wore like armor. The SUV's door opened. Marco stepped out, all 6'3" of Italian muscle stuffed into a tailored suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. His hand rested casually on his hip, where I knew he kept his gun. "Mrs. Salvatore," he said, his accent turning my new name into something foreign. "The boss wants you home. I have a shift until 6, not anymore." Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. He called Mrs. Chen, generous severance package. Very generous. Heat flooded my chest, fury so intense I tasted it. He had no right. He has every right. You're his wife. Marco opened the back door, waiting. "Please don't make this difficult." I wanted to run. God, how I wanted to sprint into the darkness and never look back. But the contract sat in a safe somewhere, pages upon pages of legal jargon that boiled down to one simple truth: my mother's life for my freedom. Stage 4 cancer didn't care about my pride, and the experimental treatment in Switzerland cost more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. I stood, legs shaky, and walked toward the SUV like a prisoner approaching the gallows. The interior smelled like him, bergamot and cedar, mixed with something darker, more primal. I'd never ridden in his personal vehicle before. He always sent drivers, kept his distance, maintained the fiction that this was a business arrangement rather than ownership. But tonight, as Marco pulled into traffic, I noticed details I'd missed before. A jacket draped over the seat beside me, still holding the warmth of his body. An empty coffee cup in the holder, lipstick free. He took it black, no sugar, like everything else in his life. And there, on the floor, a single playing card, the King of Spades. My fingers itched to pick it up, but I didn't dare. Everything in Dante Salvatore's world had meaning, and I wasn't fluent enough in his language to understand what this card represented. The penthouse loomed ahead, all glass and steel jutting into the sky like a middle finger to the laws of physics and good taste. Top floor, naturally. Dante Salvatore didn't do anything by halves. Marco escorted me through the lobby, where the night concierge nodded with the kind of deference reserved for royalty or mobsters. The elevator ride was silent, tension thick enough to choke on. I counted the floors, watched the numbers climb, and wondered, not for the first time, if I'd survive this marriage intact. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. No hallway, no chance of escape. Just straight into the belly of the beast. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the city lights like a dark angel surveying his kingdom. His suit jacket was gone, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars I'd glimpsed, but never asked about. A tumbler of amber liquid dangled from his fingers, catching the light. "Leave us," he said without turning. Marco vanished with the efficiency of someone who knew better than to linger. The silence stretched, taut as a wire ready to snap. I counted my heartbeats, 1, 2, 3, waiting for him to speak, to explain why he'd ripped away the one piece of normalcy I'd managed to keep. "You looked pale on the security feed," Dante finally said, his voice low, controlled, swaying on your feet. "I'm fine. You're exhausted." He turned then, and the full force of his attention hit me like a physical blow. Dark eyes that missed nothing, a face too beautiful to belong to someone so dangerous, and a mouth that had never smiled in my presence. "When did you last eat?" The question surprised me. This morning, maybe?" "Maybe." He repeated the word like it offended him. "Marco!" The door opened immediately. Marco had been waiting, of course. "Have the chef prepare something light. Soup, bread, nothing heavy." Dante's gaze never left my face. "And call Dr. Russo. Tell him to come by tomorrow morning." "That's not necessary," I protested, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. It wasn't a request, Emma. The way he said my name, with possession, with certainty, made my skin prickle. "You're my responsibility now. I take care of what's mine. What's mine, not who." "What?" "I don't need a doctor," I insisted, crossing my arms. "I need you to stop controlling every aspect of my life." Something dangerous flashed across his features. There and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, moving with the predatory grace of a man accustomed to violence. This close, I could smell the whiskey on his breath, see the shadow of stubble along his jaw, count the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. This close, I could almost believe the rumors, that he'd killed his first man at 16, that he'd built his empire on blood and betrayal, that he'd never lost a fight or a negotiation. "Your life belongs to me," he said softly, each word precise as a surgeon's cut. "Every breath, every heartbeat, every minute of every day, that was the agreement. Your mother lives, and you become mine. Or have you forgotten?" Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I haven't forgotten. How could I when you remind me every chance you get?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought I'd gone too far. But instead of anger, something else crossed his face, something that looked almost like regret. "Eat," he ordered, stepping back, "then sleep. You look like hell." "Romantic," I muttered, but moved toward the dining area where Marco was already setting out bowls of something that smelled divine despite my churning stomach. Dante returned to his window, his whiskey, his empire of shadows and secrets. I sat at the massive marble table, alone despite the company, and forced down spoonfuls of soup I couldn't taste. My phone buzzed again, another text, this time from my mother's nurse. "Treatment is going well. Doctor says she's responding better than expected." "You're a miracle worker, Emma." "Not a miracle worker. Just a woman who'd sold herself to save the only person who'd ever loved her unconditionally." I glanced at Dante, still standing guard over the city like a dark sentinel. Did he ever sleep? Did he ever let down that carefully constructed armor and just feel? "Why did you marry me?" The question escaped before I could stop it. He didn't turn. "You know why?" The contract was very clear. "No, I mean..." I struggled to articulate the confusion that had plagued me since the ceremony. "You're Dante Salvatore. You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women who actually want to be here. Why me? Why some broke college dropout working double shifts at a convenience store?" The silence that followed felt alive, breathing with possibility and danger. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight I didn't understand. "Because you're the only one who looked at me with fear and defiance in equal measure. Because you didn't want this, didn't want me. And that honesty is rarer than you know." He paused, taking a long drink. "And because you remind me that some things can't be bought no matter how much money I have." My throat tightened. "Then why buy me?" "Because I'm a selfish bastard who takes what he wants, even when he knows he shouldn't." He turned then, and the raw hunger in his eyes sent ice down my spine. "Finish your food. You're going to need your strength." "For what?" His smile was all edges, no warmth. "For surviving me." The soup bowl slipped from my fingers, clattering against the marble table as the room tilted sideways. Dante's face swam in my vision, concern replacing calculation, his mouth forming my name, but the sound arrived delayed, distorted. Then darkness swallowed everything, and my last conscious thought was that falling felt remarkably like flying. I woke to Egyptian cotton sheets that cost more than my security deposit, and the scent of sandalwood clinging to the pillow beside me. A pillow that bore the indent of someone's head, but was now cold to the touch. Dante had slept next to me. The realization sent adrenaline spiking through my veins. I sat up too quickly, and the room spun in lazy circles before settling. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in shades of gold that felt obscene given the circumstances. I was still fully clothed, down to my sneakers. A small mercy, though I couldn't shake the vulnerability of knowing he'd carried me here, placed me in his bed, watched me sleep. The thought made my skin feel too tight. A glass of water sat on the nightstand, condensation beading on its surface, alongside 2 white pills and a note written in sharp, aggressive handwriting. "Take these. Doctor arrives at 9. Don't even think about running." I checked my phone. 8:47 a.m. The pills went down bitter, chased by water that tasted faintly of lemon. My stomach still felt unsettled, a queasiness that had nothing to do with skipped meals, and everything to do with the cage tightening around me with each passing day. The bedroom was obscenely large, decorated in blacks and grays with occasional splashes of deep crimson that reminded me of dried blood. Everything screamed masculine power, from the abstract paintings that probably cost 6 figures to the bookshelf lined with first editions and tactical manuals. No photographs, no personal touches, nothing that revealed the man who slept here. Except for one thing. On the dresser, half hidden behind a watch collection that could fund a small country, sat a rosary. The beads were worn smooth, the crucifix tarnished with age and use. It seemed impossibly out of place in this temple of violence and wealth, a relic from a different life, or perhaps a different version of Dante Salvatore. I reached for it before I could stop myself, running my thumb over the beads. They were warm, as if recently held. My mother's. I spun around, heart hammering. Dante leaned against the doorframe, dressed in charcoal slacks and a white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His hair was damp from a shower, and without his suit jacket, he looked younger, almost human. Almost. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." I set the rosary down carefully, as if it might explode. "She died when I was 12. He pushed off the frame and crossed to the dresser, picking up the rosary with a gentleness that seemed alien on a man built for brutality. Told me to pray every day that God would protect me if I kept faith. His laugh was bitter, sharp enough to draw blood. She was wrong about that. I didn't know what to say. Sympathy felt insulting. Silence felt cruel. So I settled for truth. My father left when I was 6. Said he couldn't handle the responsibility. I used to pray he'd come back, that he'd realize he made a mistake. I met Dante's gaze. He never did. Something shifted in the air between us. A recognition of shared wounds that neither of us wanted to acknowledge. "How do you feel?" he asked. pocketing the rosary, like I fainted in front of a crime lord and woke up in his bed. His mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough to surprise me. Technically, you're married to the crime lord. Changes the optics considerably. Does it? I challenged, because from where I'm standing it feels exactly the same. The almost smile vanished. Dr. Russo will be here soon. He's discreet, thorough, and knows better than to discuss his patients with anyone, including me, unless it's life-threatening. And if I refuse to see him, Dante's expression hardened into something carved from marble. Then I'll have Marco hold you down while he examines you. Your choice, Emma. Easy or difficult. Rage flared hot in my chest. You're unbelievable. I'm concerned. He stepped closer, and I hated how my body responded. Muscles tensing, breath catching, every nerve ending suddenly aware of his proximity. You haven't been eating properly. You work yourself to exhaustion. You fainted in my arms last night and I could feel every rib when I carried you to bed. His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not quite touching. So yes, you'll see the doctor. And yes, you'll do exactly what he tells you. Because I'm your property, I spat. Because you're my wife. The way he said it, with conviction, with possession, made something dangerous curl in my lower belly. And I protect what's mine. The intercom buzzed, fracturing the moment. Dr. Russo is here, sir. Marco's voice crackled through the speaker. Dante's hand dropped. Behave, he warned. Then left me alone with my spiraling thoughts, and the ghost of his warmth still lingering in the air. Dr. Russo was exactly what I expected. Late 50s, impeccably dressed, with kind eyes that had seen too much and asked too few questions. He set up his equipment in the bedroom with practiced efficiency, while Marco stood guard at the door like a particularly well-armed statue. Mrs. Salvatore, Dr. Russo greeted me with a slight Italian accent. Your husband mentioned you've been feeling unwell? The title still felt foreign, like wearing someone else's skin. I fainted. It was nothing, just exhaustion. He pulled out a blood pressure cuff. Let's make sure, shall we? The examination was thorough but professional. Blood pressure, temperature, heart rate. He asked questions about my medical history, my diet, my sleep patterns. I answered mechanically, my mind elsewhere. When was your last menstrual period? Dr. Russo asked, pulling out vials for blood work. I blinked. What? Your last period, Mrs. Salvatore. When did it start? My mind went blank. When was it? I'd been so consumed with the wedding, the contract, adjusting to this new life that I hadn't paid attention to something so routine. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe 6 weeks ago? 7? Dr. Russo's expression remained neutral, but something in his posture shifted. I see. And you're sexually active? Heat flooded my face. No, we don't. God, why was this so humiliating? The marriage isn't consummated. I understand. He prepared the needle for blood draw with steady hands. Still, given your symptoms, fatigue, nausea, fainting, missed periods, I'd like to run a comprehensive panel. Standard procedure. The needle slid into my vein with barely a pinch. I watched my blood fill vial after vial, deep red, and somehow accusatory. I'm not pregnant, I said firmly. That's impossible. Nothing is impossible, Mrs. Salvatore. But we'll know for certain soon enough. Dr. Russo labeled the vials with meticulous care. In the meantime, I want you to rest, eat regular meals, and take these. He handed me a bottle of prenatal vitamins. I stared at the label. You're not listening. I can't be pregnant. We've never... Consider it preventative care. His smile was gentle but firm. Your iron levels are likely low, and these will help regardless. I'll have the results tomorrow morning. Until then, take care of yourself. He packed up his equipment and left me sitting on the bed, holding a bottle of vitamins for a baby that couldn't possibly exist. Dante found me on the terrace an hour later, staring at the city sprawled below like a living organism. The wind carried the smell of rain and exhaust, a perfume of normalcy that felt like mockery. What did the doctor say? He asked, leaning against the railing beside me but maintaining careful distance. That I need rest and regular meals. I kept my eyes on the skyline, Nothing serious. Emma. The single word held a command I couldn't ignore. I turned to face him, this beautiful monster I'd bound myself to. He thinks I might be pregnant. The words tasted absurd, which is impossible, obviously, since we've never touched each other. But he's running tests anyway, just to be thorough. I expected dismissal, maybe annoyance at the doctor's incompetence. Instead, Dante went perfectly still, the kind of stillness predators adopt before they strike. Pregnant, he repeated, voice carefully neutral. It's ridiculous, I know. You told me yourself you're sterile, and even if you weren't, we haven't... I gestured vaguely between us. So clearly it's something else. Stress, maybe, or have you been with anyone else? The question hit like a slap. Excuse me? Before the wedding. After. Any time. His dark eyes pinned me in place. Have you been with another man? Fury erupted, white-hot and consuming. How dare you? You bought me, forced me into this marriage, and now you're accusing me of what exactly? Cheating on a husband who won't even look at me. I look at you. His voice dropped to something dangerous, intimate. I look at you constantly, Emma. Every moment you're in my sight, I can't look away. The confession stunned me into silence. But I need to know, he continued, stepping closer. If there's a possibility, any possibility, that you're carrying another man's child, I need to know now. There's no one else. The admission felt like surrender. There hasn't been anyone in over a year. My life was work and taking care of my mother and trying to keep my head above water. Romance wasn't exactly a priority. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Good. Good? I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. That's all you have to say? I just told you I'm completely alone in the world except for a dying mother and a husband who treats me like an acquisition, and your response is good? You're not alone. He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek with unexpected tenderness. You have me. I don't want you, I whispered, even as my body betrayed me by leaning into his touch. Liar. His thumb traced my lower lip, and my breath hitched. Your body knows what your mind refuses to accept. You feel it too. This thing between us, this pull. I did feel it. God help me. I felt it every time he entered a room. Every time his gaze found mine across the penthouse. Every time I caught his scent on the sheets we'd never shared until last night, but feeling and wanting were different animals. And I refused to confuse the two. The doctor said he'd have results tomorrow. I managed, pulling back before I did something stupid like kiss him. Until then, can we please just pretend this is a normal marriage where the husband doesn't interrogate his wife about her reproductive status? Dante's hand dropped. There's nothing normal about us, Emma. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. He left me on the terrace, and I wondered if easier was just another word for broken. That night, I lay in the guest room I'd claimed as my own, staring at the ceiling and trying not to think about the man sleeping one door away. The penthouse was silent, except for the occasional creak of expensive architecture settling, but my mind screamed with possibilities I didn't want to consider. Pregnant. Impossible. Sterile. Blood tests. Tomorrow. The words spun in circles until I wanted to scream. My phone buzzed. Can't sleep either. I stared at Dante's text, then at the wall separating us. How did he know? Stop thinking so loud, came another message. You're keeping me awake. Despite everything, I smiled. Maybe you should try counting sheep. I tried. They all look like you. My heart did something complicated in my chest. This version of Dante, playful, almost vulnerable, felt more dangerous than the cold crime lord who'd bought me. Go to sleep, Emma. Tomorrow changes nothing, but he was wrong. Tomorrow changed everything. Dr. Russo arrived at exactly 9 a.m., his expression professionally neutral in a way that made my stomach knot with dread. I sat in the living room, fingers twisted together, while Dante stood by the window, his usual position, his usual watchfulness, except today, his shoulders carried a tension I'd never noticed before. Mr. and Mrs. Salvatore, Dr. Russo began, setting his briefcase on the coffee table. I have your results. The silence stretched impossibly long. I counted heartbeats, mine racing, Dante's probably steady as ever. and waited for confirmation of what I already knew. Stress, anemia, exhaustion. Something fixable with rest and vitamins and time away from this gilded prison. Mrs. Salvatore, you're pregnant, approximately 6 to 7 weeks based on hormone levels. The world tilted sideways. That's impossible, I heard myself say, though my voice sounded distant, hollow. He's sterile. The doctors said, medical impossibilities happen more often than you'd think. Dr. Russo's tone remained maddeningly calm. Sterility isn't always absolute. Sometimes it's simply severe infertility, and under the right circumstances. He trailed off delicately. I turned to Dante, expecting denial, anger, accusations. Instead, he stood frozen, face drained of color, staring at the doctor like he'd spoken in a language Dante couldn't comprehend. You're certain? Dante's voice came out rough, barely controlled. The blood work is definitive. Congratulations. Dr. Russo pulled out paperwork. I'll need to schedule an ultrasound to confirm viability and dating, but based on these numbers, everything looks healthy. Mrs. Salvatore, you'll need to start prenatal care immediately. Stop. I stood abruptly, legs shaking. Just stop. This doesn't make sense. We've never touched each other. Never. So either those tests are wrong or... Memory hit me like a freight train. The wedding night. I'd been so exhausted, so emotionally wrung out from the ceremony and the contract and the reality of what I'd done. Dante had given me a drink, whiskey, he'd said, to calm my nerves. I'd woken up the next morning in his bed with no memory of how I got there, my clothes rumpled, my body aching in ways I'd attributed to stress. You drugged me. The accusation fell between us like a guillotine blade. That first night, you gave me something, and then you... No. Dante crossed the distance in 2 strides, gripping my shoulders. Emma, no. I would never... I gave you a sedative because you were hysterical, but I didn't touch you. I swear on my mother's grave I didn't touch you. Then explain how I'm pregnant. Tears streamed down my face, hot and furious. Explain how your sterile body somehow got me pregnant when we've never had sex. Dr. Russo cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps I should give you both some privacy. No. Dante's grip tightened fractionally. Stay. I want you to explain to my wife exactly how conception works, since she seems to think I'm a liar. Mr. Salvatore, explain it. The command cracked like a whip. Dr. Russo sighed, pulling out a medical diagram I absolutely did not want to see. Mrs. Salvatore, conception doesn't always require full intercourse. If there was any intimate contact, even partial, even brief. There wasn't, I insisted. But doubt crept in like poison. Had there been? The wedding night was a blur of champagne and panic, and Dante's hand steadying me when I stumbled. And then nothing. Just blank space where memories should be. Emma. Dante's voice softened, and somehow that was worse than his anger. Look at me. I did, searching those dark eyes for deception and finding only raw honesty that terrified me more than any lie. I didn't sleep with you, he said slowly, each word deliberate. But I did. I stayed with you. You were upset, crying, and I held you. You kissed me, or tried to. You were barely conscious, so I stopped it, but there was contact. Not intercourse, but... He swallowed hard. Enough, apparently. The memory surfaced like something drowning. Dante's mouth on mine, my hands fumbling with his belt, his voice rough with desire and restraint as he'd pulled away. Not like this. Not when you won't remember. Oh God. The baby is yours, I whispered, the reality crushing me beneath its weight. The baby is ours. His hands slid from my shoulders to cradle my face. And that changes everything. Dr. Russo gathered his things with practiced efficiency. I'll schedule the ultrasound for next week. In the meantime, rest, take your vitamins, and avoid stress as much as possible. He paused at the door. This is good news, Mr. Salvatore. I know the previous diagnosis was difficult. After he left, silence swallowed the penthouse whole. Dante stood inches away, hands still framing my face, looking at me like I'd just handed him the world on a silver platter. And maybe I had. A child. The one thing he'd been told he could never have, growing inside me. I need air, I managed, pulling away from his touch. Emma, please, just give me a minute. I fled to the terrace, gulping down November wind that tasted like freedom I'd never have. Pregnant. With Dante Salvatore's baby. The impossibility, the irony, the sheer cosmic joke of it all made me want to laugh and scream in equal measure. A life was growing inside me, a tiny, impossible life that shouldn't exist but did. And I had no idea what that meant for the cage I'd walked into willingly. Dante found me 20 minutes later, carrying a blanket and 2 cups of tea I hadn't asked for but desperately needed. "You'll catch cold," he said, draping the cashmere over my shoulders. I accepted the tea wordlessly, letting the warmth seep into my frozen fingers. "I know you're scared," Dante continued, leaning against the railing beside me. "I know this wasn't part of the plan. For either of us. But Emma, I meant what I said. This changes everything." "How?" I turned to face him. "How does it change anything? I'm still trapped in a marriage I didn't want. You still own me. The only difference is now I'm carrying your child, which makes me even more of a prisoner." Pain flashed across his features, raw and unexpected. "Is that really what you think? That I see you as a prisoner? What else am I supposed to think? You bought me, Dante. My mother's life for mine. That's not marriage. That's ownership with legal paperwork." He set down his tea with deliberate care, and when he looked at me again, something fierce burned in his eyes. "You want to know why I really married you? Why you, out of all the women who would have jumped at the chance to be Mrs. Salvatore? You said I was honest, that I didn't want you. That's part of it." He stepped closer, crowding me against the railing but not touching. "But the truth? I've been watching you for months, Emma. Since before your mother got sick. Since before I ever approached you with the contract." Ice slid down my spine. "What?" "You worked at that convenience store every night. 12-hour shifts, studying during breaks, saving every penny for tuition you'd never afford. And every Friday you'd buy flowers, cheap grocery store carnations, and take them to your mother." His hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You were so tired you could barely stand, but you'd sit by her bed and read to her. Shakespeare, Dickinson, Whitman. Poetry she probably didn't understand anymore, but you read anyway." Tears burned my eyes. "You had no right to watch me. I had no right to want you either. But I did. I do." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "You were this bright, stubborn light in a world that's only ever shown me darkness. And when I learned about the experimental treatment, when I saw the bills piling up and the defeat in your eyes, I couldn't walk away. So you played savior?" Bitterness coated my tongue. How noble. "I played monster." His smile was self-deprecating, cruel. "I gave you an impossible choice and called it mercy. I forced you into a marriage you didn't want because I'm too selfish to let you go. There's nothing noble about what I did, Emma, but I won't apologize for it, because having you here, carrying my child," he pressed his forehead to mine, "it's the closest to redemption I'll ever get." My breath caught. This close, I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the vulnerability he never showed anyone else. "I don't know how to do this," I whispered. "Any of this. Being your wife, being pregnant, living in this world you've built from violence and fear. Then we'll learn together." His lips brushed my temple, feather-light. "I don't know how to be a husband. I definitely don't know how to be a father. But I know how to protect what's mine. And Emma, you and this baby, you're mine now. Completely. Irrevocably." The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my belly, a want I couldn't acknowledge without losing whatever remained of my pride. The contract? Fuck the contract. The vulgarity sounded strange on his lips. "You think I need a piece of paper to keep you here? You're pregnant with my child. The first child I ever thought I'd have. Nothing and no one will take that from me." "What about what I want?" His eyes searched mine. "What do you want, Emma?" The question hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to explore. What did I want? Freedom seemed like a fantasy now, tainted by the life growing inside me. But staying here, becoming the wife he clearly wanted me to be, meant surrendering the last pieces of myself. "I want my mother to live," I said finally. "I want this baby to be healthy, and I faltered, the truth too dangerous to speak aloud. "What?" Dante pressed, his hands sliding to my waist. Tell me what you want, and I'll give it to you. Anything. You. The thought terrified me. I want you, even though I shouldn't. Even though wanting you means losing myself. But I couldn't say it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I want to visit my mother, I said instead. I haven't seen her since the wedding. I need to tell her about the baby. Something like disappointment flickered in Dante's expression, but he nodded. I'll arrange it. Tomorrow, Marco will drive you. Alone. Emma, if you meant what you said about giving me what I want, then give me this. One afternoon with my mother. Just us. No guards, no surveillance, no reminders that I'm your possession. I met his gaze steadily. Please. The internal war played across his face. Control versus concession. Fear versus trust. Finally, he exhaled slowly. 4 hours. Marco drops you off and picks you up. You don't leave the facility grounds. His hand settled over my still flat stomach. Possessive and protective. And you take care of yourself and our baby. Those are my terms. It wasn't freedom, but it was close enough. Okay. I agreed. Dante's thumb traced circles on my abdomen through the fabric of my shirt, his expression softening into something almost tender. A baby, he murmured, like testing the word. Our baby. The way he said, our, with wonder, with certainty, made my traitorous heart skip. I was in so much trouble. I lay in my guest room bed, one hand on my stomach, trying to wrap my mind around the impossible. A life. A tiny cluster of cells that would become a person, half me and half Dante Salvatore, the most dangerous man I'd ever met. My phone buzzed. Are you okay? I stared at Dante's text, then typed back. Define okay. Alive. Safe. Not hating me quite as much as this morning. Despite everything, I smiled. I never hated you. No? Hating you would be easier than whatever this is. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, I know the feeling. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard, then wrote, Thank you. For letting me see my mother tomorrow. Thank you for carrying my child, for giving me something I thought I'd lost the right to want. The raw honesty stole my breath. This version of Dante, vulnerable, almost broken, scared me more than the crime lord ever had. Good night, Dante. Good night, Emma. Sleep well. Both of you. I set the phone aside and closed my eyes, one hand still protective over my abdomen. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something that wasn't quite hope, but lived in the same neighborhood. Maybe we could survive this. Maybe surviving could become something more. The care facility smelled like antiseptic and dying dreams, a scent I'd grown to associate with my mother's slow fade from the world. Marco dropped me at the entrance with a warning look that said more than words ever could. 4 hours. Don't make him come looking for you. I nodded, clutching the flowers I'd bought. Real roses this time, deep red and obscenely expensive. Purchased with Dante's black card because my own account had exactly $47 left. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom was in the solarium, sunlight painting her fragile frame in shades of gold that made her look almost healthy. Almost. But the wheelchair told the truth, as did the oxygen tube snaking beneath her nose and the way her hands trembled when she reached for me. Emma. Her voice cracked with emotion. Oh, sweetheart, look at you. I knelt beside her chair, burying my face against her shoulder the way I had as a child, and let myself cry. Not the careful, controlled tears I'd shed in the penthouse, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere primal and desperate. Shh, baby. I've got you. Her fingers stroked my hair with the same gentleness she'd shown when I was 5 and afraid of thunderstorms. Tell me what's wrong. Where did I even start? The forced marriage, the contract written in my blood and her survival, the husband who watched me like I might disappear if he blinked, the impossible pregnancy growing inside me. I'm married, I managed between gasps, and pregnant. Mom went absolutely still. Then carefully, Pregnant? I pulled back, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. 6 weeks. The doctor confirmed it yesterday. But you said the marriage was just that it was for the money, for my treatment. Her gaze sharpened despite the morphine haze. "Emma, what did you do?" "What I had to." I stood, pacing the small solarium. "You were dying, Mom. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer with a 6-month prognosis. The experimental treatment in Switzerland was our only chance, and it cost $3 million. $3 million I'd never have in 10 lifetimes. So you sold yourself?" Not a question. An accusation wrapped in maternal heartbreak. "I saved you." I spun to face her. "Dante Salvatore offered me a contract. Marriage in exchange for your treatment. Fully funded, best doctors in the world. What was I supposed to do? Let you die because I was too proud to accept help? Help?" Mom's laugh was bitter, painful. "Sweetheart, men like Dante Salvatore don't help. They own. They consume. They take and take until there's nothing left." Her eyes filled with tears. "I would have rather died than watch you sacrifice yourself for me." The words hit like a physical blow. "Don't say that. It's true. You think I don't know who he is, what he is?" She gripped the wheelchair arms, knuckles white. "I've been following the news, Emma. Dante Salvatore, the Salvatore family. They're not just wealthy businessmen. They're criminals, killers. And you married into that world to save a dying woman who's lived her life." "You're my mother," I whispered. "You're all I have. And now you're pregnant with a monster's child." The word, monster, lodged in my chest like a bullet, because she wasn't wrong. Dante was dangerous, violent, capable of things that would horrify me if I let myself think about them too long. But he was also the man who'd held me while I cried, who'd given me space when I needed it, who'd touched my stomach with such reverence it made my heart ache. "He's not a monster," I said quietly. "Or maybe he is, but he's not just that. He's complicated. Stockholm Syndrome is also complicated." Mom reached for my hand. "Baby, listen to me. It's not too late. We can find another way. I can stop treatment, use what's left for lawyers, get you out of this marriage." "No." I pulled away. "I won't let you die, and even if I wanted out, it's too late. I'm carrying his child. Dante would never let me go now. Then we run. Tonight. I'll discharge myself. We'll disappear. Mom, stop." I knelt again, taking her trembling hands in mine. "You can barely walk 20 feet without oxygen. Where exactly would we run? And even if we could, do you really think Dante wouldn't find us?" I pressed her palm to my still flat abdomen. "This baby is his, the first child he thought he could never have. He'd hunt us to the ends of the earth." Defeat settled over her features like a shroud. "So you're trapped." I made a choice. The words tasted like ash. Maybe not a good one, but mine nonetheless, and now I have to live with the consequences. We sat in silence, her hand still resting on my stomach, both of us contemplating futures we'd never imagined. "Tell me about him," Mom finally said. "Not Dante Salvatore, the crime lord, the man you married, the father of your child." I didn't know how to answer that. What could I say? That he terrified and fascinated me in equal measure? That his touch made my skin burn? That I dreamed about him more nights than I cared to admit? "He's possessive," I started carefully. "Controlling. He needs to know where I am, what I'm doing, who I'm with. It's suffocating. But," I smiled despite myself, "but he's also protective. Gentle sometimes in ways that surprise me. Last night he texted me goodnight. Not just me and the baby, like we're this unit now." I traced patterns on her wheelchair arm. "He watches me when he thinks I'm not looking, not in a creepy way, but like he's trying to memorize me, like I might disappear. Do you love him?" The question stole my breath. I barely know him. That's not what I asked. Did I love Dante? Love seemed too simple a word for what twisted between us. Want and fear, resentment and attraction. The gravitational pull of two damaged people circling each other like binary stars. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I feel something, and it terrifies me." Mom squeezed my hand. "Then be careful, sweetheart. Men like him don't love, they obsess. And obsession destroys everything it touches." 3 hours passed too quickly. We talked about everything and nothing, The baby's due date, potential names, whether the treatment was working. It was, miraculously, mundane things that felt sacred given the circumstances. When Marco texted that he was 15 minutes out, panic clawed at my throat. I wasn't ready to leave this bubble of normalcy, to return to the gilded cage and the complicated man waiting there. "I'll visit again soon," I promised, kissing Mom's forehead. "And I'll bring pictures from the ultrasound." "Emma," she caught my wrist as I turned to leave. "Whatever happens, remember, you're stronger than you think, stronger than him. Don't let him break you." I nodded, not trusting my voice, and fled before the tears could start again. Marco waited by the SUV, expression unreadable behind designer sunglasses. The drive back was silent, tension thick enough to choke on. I watched the city blur past, feeling the walls close in with every mile. My phone buzzed. "How was your visit, Dante?" Of course he'd been watching the clock, counting down the minutes until I returned to him. "Good. Mom's doing well. Treatment is working. And you? How are you feeling?" The genuine concern in his words made my chest tight, tired, emotional, pregnant. "Marco will have you home in 10 minutes. I have something for you." Curiosity warred with exhaustion. "What kind of something?" "You'll see." The penthouse felt different when I walked in. Warmer somehow, more lived in. Dante stood in the living room, hands in his pockets, looking almost nervous in a way that seemed impossible for a man who commanded empires. "Close your eyes," he said. "Dante, please. Trust me." I shouldn't have. Every survival instinct screamed not to show vulnerability to a predator. But I closed my eyes anyway, feeling his hand take mine, warm and calloused, as he led me through the penthouse. "Okay," he murmured. "Open them." The guest room I'd claimed as my sanctuary had been transformed. The bland corporate furniture was gone, replaced with pieces that looked antique, hand-carved, beautiful. The walls were now a soft sage green, and where there had been nothing hung original artwork. Not abstract modernist pieces, but landscapes and portraits that felt warm, human. But it was the corner that made my breath catch. A rocking chair sat beside the window, cushioned in cream fabric. Next to it stood a bookshelf already filled with children's books, classic fairy tales, modern picture books, some in English and some in Italian, and against the far wall, a crib, I whispered. "I know it's early." Dante's voice came from behind me, uncertain in a way I'd never heard. "The baby won't need it for months," but I saw it, and I thought, he trailed off. And when I turned, his expression was almost vulnerable. "I wanted you to know this is real for me, that I'm committed to this. To you, to our family. Our family." The words should have felt like chains tightening. Instead, they felt like a lifeline. "You did this today, while I was gone?" I had help. An interior designer who specializes in nurseries, apparently. His mouth quirked. "She assured me everything is baby-safe, non-toxic, developmentally appropriate. I have no idea what any of that means, but she seemed very confident." A laugh bubbled up, unexpected and genuine. "It's beautiful, really. You can change anything you want. Colors, furniture, whatever. This is your space, Emma. Yours and the baby's." He stepped closer, hand settling on my lower back. "I want you to feel at home here. This isn't my home." The words came automatically, defensive. It could be. His thumb traced circles through my shirt. "If you let it. If you let me." He stopped, jaw tightening. "I'm not good at this. Feelings, vulnerability, asking instead of taking. But I'm trying, Emma. For you. For our child." I turned in his arms, tilting my head back to meet his gaze. This close, I could see the fear hiding beneath his control, the desperate hope he tried to mask with commands and possession. "Why does this matter so much to you?" I asked. "The baby." "Yes, I understand. It's something you thought you'd never have." "But me? Why do you care if I feel at home here?" Dante's hand lifted to cup my face, his touch achingly gentle. Because somewhere between watching you read poetry to your dying mother and carrying you to bed after you fainted in my arms, I stopped seeing you as a means to an end. His forehead pressed to mine. You've become the end itself, Emma. The thing I want most. And that terrifies me more than any bullet or blade ever has. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dante, you don't have to say anything. His lips brushed my temple. I know you don't feel the same. How could you? I bought you, trapped you, turned your life into a cage. But maybe someday, he pulled back, dark eyes searching mine. Maybe someday you'll see me as more than your captor. The kiss happened before I could think better of it. My mouth finding his, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer even as every rational thought screamed to run. He tasted like whiskey and want. And when his arms wrapped around me, I felt simultaneously trapped and free. Emma, he groaned against my lips. We shouldn't. You need rest. Shut up, I whispered, and kissed him again. This time he didn't hold back. His mouth claimed mine with devastating thoroughness, one hand tangling in my hair while the other pressed against my lower back, molding me to him. Heat pooled low in my belly, want mixing with something more dangerous, more permanent. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante looked at me like I'd just rewritten his entire world. That was, he started, a mistake, I finished, stepping back. Hormones. Pregnancy hormones making me crazy. Emma, I need to lie down. I fled toward the bedroom, away from his knowing gaze and my own traitorous heart. Thank you for the nursery. It's perfect. I closed the door before he could respond, pressing my back against it, fingers touching my still tingling lips. What was I doing? Kissing the man who owned me, letting myself want him, pretending this could be anything other than a beautifully decorated prison? But God, for just a moment, it had felt real. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Block 5. The ultrasound appointment arrived too quickly, bringing with it a nervousness that made my hands shake as I dressed. Dante had been different since the kiss 3 days ago. More attentive, more present, touching me constantly in small ways that felt both possessive and tender. A hand at my lower back, fingers brushing mine as he passed me coffee. His palms settling on my stomach whenever we sat together. It was driving me insane. Ready? He asked from the doorway, looking unfairly handsome in charcoal slacks and a black sweater that emphasized shoulders built for violence. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The medical facility was exclusive, private, the kind of place where celebrities and criminals received care far from prying eyes. Dr. Russo met us in an examination room decorated to feel less clinical, soft lighting, comfortable chairs, abstract art that probably cost more than my education. Mrs. Salvatore, Mr. Salvatore. He shook our hands. Excited to see your baby today? Dante's fingers tightened around mine. Very. I lay back on the examination table, heart racing as Dr. Russo prepared the ultrasound equipment. Dante stood beside me, one hand gripping mine while the other hovered protectively near my shoulder, as if ready to shield me from whatever came next. This will be cold, Dr. Russo warned, spreading gel across my abdomen. The wand pressed against my skin, and suddenly the monitor filled with grainy black and white images that meant nothing to my untrained eye. Dr. Russo moved the wand slowly, methodically, his expression focused. There, he said, pointing to a small bean-shaped blob on the screen. That's your baby. My breath caught. That tiny thing, barely visible, impossibly fragile, was a life. Our life, half me, half Dante, already real in ways I couldn't comprehend. And here, Dr. Russo clicked a button, and suddenly sound filled the room. A rapid whooshing, like horses galloping or waves crashing, rhythmic and strong. The heartbeat, Dr. Russo explained, 162 beats per minute. Perfect. I felt Dante go absolutely still beside me. When I turned to look at him, tears streamed down his face, silent, unguarded, raw with emotion I'd never seen him express. That's our baby? His voice broke on the words. That's really your baby, Dr. Russo confirmed, smiling. Measuring right on track for 7 weeks. Everything looks healthy. Dante's hand found my stomach, pressing gently as if he could feel the life growing there through skin and muscle. It's so small, but mighty, I whispered, my own tears starting. Listen to that heartbeat. We stayed like that, frozen in a moment of perfect vulnerability, while our baby's heartbeat filled the room like a promise neither of us knew how to keep. Dr. Russo printed several images, tactfully ignoring our emotional breakdown, and gave us instructions about prenatal care, diet, what to expect in the coming weeks. I barely heard him. My entire focus was on the man beside me, watching him transform from crime lord to father right before my eyes. In the SUV afterward, Dante held the ultrasound pictures like they might disintegrate. I never thought. He cleared his throat. The doctors were so certain. No chance, they said. My body couldn't. He pressed his fist against his mouth, shoulders shaking. I reached over, taking his free hand. But it did. We did. And now we have this impossible, perfect thing. He turned to me, eyes red-rimmed but blazing with intensity. I need you to understand something, Emma. That baby, our baby, changes everything. Not just for me, but for us. For what this marriage means. Anxiety prickled down my spine. What do you mean? I mean I won't let you leave, ever. His hand cupped my face with devastating tenderness. I know the contract said 3 years. I know you've been counting down the days until you're free. But Emma, I'm tearing up that contract. You're mine now. Permanently. Irrevocably. The mother of my child, and I will burn this city to the ground before I let you go. I should have been terrified. Should have recognized the cage door slamming shut, the last escape route closing. Instead, my traitorous heart skipped with something that felt dangerously like relief. You can't just... I can. I am. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my lips. Tell me you don't feel it too, this thing between us. Tell me those kisses meant nothing, that you don't think about me the way I think about you, constantly, obsessively, until it feels like madness. Dante? Tell me, he demanded, and I'll try to let you go when the 3 years are up. Lie to me convincingly enough, and I'll honor the original contract. My mouth opened, the lie ready on my tongue. I don't want you. I'll never want you. Let me go. But the words wouldn't come, because they weren't true. Somewhere between the forced marriage and the impossible pregnancy, between his vulnerability and his violence, I'd started falling for Dante Salvatore. Maybe I'd been falling since that first night when he'd stopped himself from taking what I'd offered in my drugged haze. Maybe I'd been falling since he'd arranged my mother's treatment without demanding anything in return except my presence. Or maybe I'd been falling since the moment I saw him cry over our baby's heartbeat. I can't, I whispered. I can't tell you that. Triumph and tenderness warred in his expression. Then say what you can. Give me something, Emma. Anything. I'm scared. The confession tore from somewhere deep. I'm terrified of wanting you, of needing you, of this becoming real. Because if I let myself love you, Dante, if I let these walls come down and you destroy me anyway, I shook my head. I won't survive it. Then I'll make sure you never have to. His forehead pressed to mine. I'll spend every day proving you can trust me. That I'll protect you. That you and our baby are the most important things in my world. You're a criminal, I reminded him, even as my hands fisted in his sweater. You hurt people, kill people. How can I trust someone capable of that? Because the monster I am to the rest of the world? His thumb traced my lower lip. He bows at your feet, Emma. You've tamed something I didn't think could be tamed. The kiss was inevitable, desperate and claiming, his mouth on mine like he was trying to brand me from the inside out. I kissed him back with equal fervor, months of denial and want pouring into the connection. Mr. Salvatore, Marco's voice crackled through the intercom. We're being followed. Dante pulled back instantly, expression shifting from tender to lethal in a heartbeat. How many vehicles? 2. Black sedans, tinted windows. They picked us up, leaving the medical facility. My blood ran cold. What does that mean? It means someone knows about the baby. Dante's hand moved to his hip, where I knew he kept a gun. and they're either very brave or very stupid. He pressed the intercom. Lose them. Take the route through the warehouse district. Copy that. The SUV accelerated, and I gripped the armrest as Marco wove through traffic with practiced precision. Dante pulled me against his side, his body a shield between me and the window. Who would follow us? I asked, voice shaking. Rivals, enemies, take your pick. I've made plenty over the years. His jaw clenched. But they made a mistake targeting you. Targeting our baby. The violence in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I felt protected, safe despite the danger literally chasing us through city streets. Marco took a sharp turn, then another, the pursuing vehicles falling back but not disappearing. My heart hammered against my ribs, and I pressed one hand protectively over my stomach. It's okay, Dante murmured, pressing a kiss to my temple. I've got you. Both of you. The warehouse district loomed ahead, abandoned buildings and empty lots, perfect for either escape or ambush. Marco navigated the maze of streets with expert skill, finally pulling into a garage beneath one of Dante's properties. The metal door slammed shut behind us, sealing us in darkness before emergency lighting flickered on. Stay here, Dante commanded, but I grabbed his arm. Don't leave me. Something in my voice, fear, need, vulnerability, made him pause. Emma, please, don't leave me alone. Not now. He pulled me from the SUV, keeping me tucked against his side as Marco and two other armed men I hadn't noticed emerged from the shadows. They moved with military precision, checking exits, securing the perimeter. All clear, boss, one of them reported. Dante nodded, but his arm stayed locked around me. Double the security at the penthouse. I want eyes on every entrance, every street within 3 blocks. And find out who was in those sedans. Already on it, Marco assured him. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt endless, tension radiating from Dante in waves. The moment we were inside, he guided me to the couch, kneeling in front of me to check for injuries I didn't have. I'm fine, I insisted. We're fine. This time. His hands shook as they framed my face. But Emma, you need to understand, now that people know about the baby, you're a target. The wife of Dante Salvatore carrying his heir, that makes you the most valuable commodity in the city. Every enemy I have will see you as leverage. The reality of what I'd stepped into crashed over me like a wave. So what do? We adapt. Increased security, limited outings. Marco with you at all times when I can't be. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and you learn to shoot. I blinked. What? I won't always be there to protect you. So you'll learn to protect yourself and our baby. His expression was granite. Starting tomorrow, you train with my security team. Basic self-defense, firearms, situational awareness, non-negotiable. Part of me wanted to argue, to insist this was insane. But the rational part, the part that had felt those vehicles following us, that understood what Dante's world really meant, knew he was right. Okay, I agreed. I'll learn. Relief flooded his features. Thank you. We sat in silence, processing the day. The joy of seeing our baby's heartbeat. The terror of being hunted. The reality that our lives had fundamentally changed in ways neither of us had anticipated. I'm sorry, Dante finally said, for dragging you into this world, for putting you in danger. You gave me a choice, I reminded him. Maybe not a fair one, but a choice nonetheless. My mother's life or my freedom. I chose her. I chose this. My hand covered his where it rested on my knee. And I'm choosing to see this through, for our baby, I hesitated. For us. Us, he repeated, like the word was sacred. I like the sound of that. Don't get used to it. I still reserve the right to hate you on Tuesdays. His laugh was surprised, genuine. Only Tuesdays? I'm feeling generous. He pulled me into his arms, and I let myself sink into his warmth, his strength, the promise of protection, even when that protection came wrapped in violence. I love you, he whispered against my hair. I know it's too soon, too fast, too complicated. But Emma, I love you. I think I've loved you since I first saw you buying those cheap flowers for your mother, exhausted but still trying so hard to be strong. My breath caught. 3 words I'd never expected to hear from him, loaded with meaning I wasn't ready to unpack. "You don't have to say it back," he continued. "I just needed you to know, whatever happens, however this ends, you need to know that you're loved, completely, irrevocably." Tears streamed down my face because he'd used the same words to describe his possession, his claim on me. But now they meant something different, something real. "I don't know if I love you yet," I admitted. "But I feel something. Something big and terrifying and impossible to ignore." I pulled back to meet his gaze. "And maybe that's enough. For now." "It's more than enough." He kissed me softly, reverently, like I was something precious instead of something bought. "It's everything." 6 months later, I stood in the nursery we'd built together, one hand on my swollen belly as our daughter kicked enthusiastically. The room had evolved from Dante's initial surprise into something we'd created as a team. Soft yellows and grays, hand-painted murals of Italian countryside, furniture we'd chosen together during rare afternoons when his world allowed normalcy. My mother had visited last week, walking without oxygen for the first time in 2 years, the experimental treatment having worked a miracle none of us expected. She'd held my hands and told me I looked happy. And the terrifying thing was, I was. Dante entered the nursery, coming up behind me to wrap his arms around my enlarged middle. "Talking to her again? She's very chatty today." I leaned back against his chest. "I think she has your stubborn streak. Poor child." He pressed a kiss to my neck. "Doomed from the start. We'd gotten married again 3 months ago. A real ceremony this time, with my mother present and vows we actually meant. The original contract sat in a safe somewhere, torn to pieces but kept as a reminder of where we'd started. I still trained with Marco twice a week, though my growing belly made certain maneuvers impossible. I could shoot, fight, protect myself and our daughter when needed. The shadows of Dante's world hadn't disappeared, but I'd learned to navigate them, to find light in the darkness. "I have something for you," Dante said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside sat a ring, not the ostentatious diamond from our contract marriage, but something simple, elegant, beautiful, a sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds set in platinum. "It was my mother's," he explained. "The only thing of value she owned. I want you to have it, to remember that love can exist even in the darkest places." I let him slide it onto my finger beside my wedding band, and it fit perfectly. "I love you," I said, the words finally easy instead of terrifying. "I love you, Dante Salvatore, and I choose you every day, even on Tuesdays." His kiss was answer enough, tender and claiming, promise and possession, everything we'd become wrapped in a single moment. Our daughter kicked again, as if celebrating her parents finally figuring out what had been obvious to everyone else, that the forced marriage had become real love, that the cage had become home, that sometimes the most impossible things were exactly what we needed. "Ready to meet her in 3 months?" Dante asked, his hand joining mine on my belly. "Terrified," I admitted, "but ready. We'll figure it out together." He turned me in his arms, dark eyes full of the vulnerability he only showed me. "Everything. Together." "Together," I agreed. And for the first time since this whole impossible journey began, I believed it. The monster had been tamed by love, and I had been freed by choosing to stay.